Hey, Michelle here, and I'm really excited that you're joining me on this design workshop where I go through and give you some tips and tricks and kind of a little bit of a refresh or an introduction to learning how to design your own SVG files. So for today's workshop, I'm going to be sharing with you about the types of software that you can use when you're creating SVG files. It's one of the most frequent questions I get of where do I begin? And so I'm going to share with you my thoughts behind that and where I think you can get started. Before I dive into that, I want to share a little bit about my story so you can get to know me a little bit. I started with a Silhouette cutting machine, possibly like you might also have a Cricut, and I was buying and downloading other creators' freebies and files online. I very quickly realized that I wanted to put my own spin on them. I wanted them to say very specific things, and I really wanted to have it look the way I wanted rather than the way somebody else created it. And so I ended up teaching myself how to design SVG files. Through that process, I've actually created a very successful multi-six-figure business of designing SVG files and teaching others how to create their own ideas. And so I have a membership for my designs, and then I have a course where I teach you step by step how to create your own. So in this workshop, I'm going to be sharing some of those secrets and some of that background story a little bit with you. So for today, let's go ahead and dive into software. I'm going to share my own personal favorites of software and kind of give you hopefully a starting point if you are looking to design your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. So the thing to know with software programs is there's so many options. There is something out there for everyone. You can use Silhouette Studio if you have the business edition to create SVG files. You can use Canva. You can use Inkscape, which is a totally free software. You can use Adobe Illustrator, which I think is kind of like the industry standard. You can also use something like Corel Draw that's not subscription based. There's a lot of different possibilities out there. So the most important thing that I hope that you get from all of these things that I'm teaching is there's no wrong answers on this. Part of this entire creative process is figuring out what's the best answer for you and your current situation and whatever your current goals are, because everybody's goals are a little bit different. Some people, they might want to start a digital business and open up an Etsy shop. Some people, they might want to be selling physical products with their items and they just want to put their own spin on it. Some people might just be creating and designing things for gifts or for fun. And so remember, there's no wrong answers, and part of this process is trying out what works best for you. Now, in this process, I'm going to share what works best for me in order to help guide you a little bit. And so the things that worked best for me, I originally started designing in Inkscape. I started my business while I was still creating in Inkscape. Canva didn't exist at the time, and so looking back now, if Canva was there, I possibly could have started there, but I started in Inkscape, and I think it's a really great software to use because it's free and it's perfect for when you're just starting off. You could actually go today to inkscape.org, download the software, and be creating SVG files by tonight, which is kind of cool if you think about it. Nowadays, I only exclusively create in Adobe Illustrator. I've fallen in love with the program, and I think that it's just a little bit, it meets my needs a little bit more than Inkscape does. Some of the glitches and things that come with Inkscape, I could kind of look past when I wasn't making an income to be able to afford Adobe Illustrator, but now I've invested fully in that software and I would not go any other route. I currently teach both of these software programs, Inkscape and Adobe Illustrator. I teach both of those inside of my course 123 SVG. If you're interested in learning more about Canva and potentially having me teach a little bit of that, feel free to comment below, and that might be something that I look looked forward to in the future. So for me, I started in Inkscape and now I exclusively use Adobe Illustrator. Now, what would I do differently? If I was looking back on my designing career, number one, I would have moved into Adobe Illustrator much sooner than I actually did. I was very hesitant. I was comfortable in Inkscape. It was working for me, at least I thought it was at the time. But knowing what I know now, Adobe Illustrator has so many less glitches and the functionality is just much smoother. I would have absolutely moved into Adobe much sooner. If you are selling enough files to cover the cost of Adobe, I would say go for it. Go all in and use that as one of your very first expenses in your business if you're creating a digital business, because I definitely would have moved into it much sooner looking back now. Here's a few helpful software tips. So when you're experimenting with some of these softwares, the reality is you just got to get in there and kind of explore and try. Number one, every single software that you use is going to have its quirks. Every single one. No software is perfect, unfortunately. And number two, nothing is easy the first time you use it. Nothing. Everything's going to be like, oh, I should have clicked that, or oh, what is that button, or where do I go here? But the good news is in every software, the more you use it, the easier it becomes, which is why one of the core things I like to teach is you've got to design every single day, even if it's only for 5 minutes, but be in your software every single day. It'll make it so much easier for you as you continue to grow and learn. Now, one more helpful tip is start with the free trials. Nowadays, almost everything has a free trial. Utilize those and experiment with various software programs so that you can see which one meets your needs. Like I mentioned, Inkscape is 100% free anyway, so you don't even need a free trial with it. So get in there, get your hands dirty, and start exploring the software. And then I'd love to hear which software you're going to try. So comment below, let me know which software you're going to try, and then I'll be back here with you tomorrow with day number 2 in our free design introduction or refresh. I'd love it if you connected with me over at MyDesignsInTheChaos.com. You can find me on all the social media channels at MyDesignsInTheChaos. And if you'd like to reach out, feel free at info@MyDesignsInTheChaos.com. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye, guys.